maybe one day we will not exist because it's like a shortcut, right? They don't need to go to the university. They just take these industrial credentials and they can just go to work. So is that the scenario now? So you can see basically US credential ecosystem is now numerically dominated by shorter, modular, digitally legible forms of recognition, especially in badges and certificates rather than degrees alone. So we have to understand the scenario now. So that's why higher education need to kind of rewiring how we see, I think most of us are in higher educations. So we need to actually kind of like rewire how we think, because the issue is not whether degrees disappear, but whether degrees remain the only trusted currency of learning. So it seems that the industries are also offering a lot of certificates now. However, maybe what is a good thing? We still have the confidence of this degree, bachelor's degree or master's degree need in all countries. It needs to be produced or by the higher education institution, okay? Because industry cannot issue this kind of degree. So that is the good part, as higher education means we can still sustain our existence, okay? But in order to do that, we have to be very clear what's going on with the current market. 76%, this is what from Coursera as well, 70%, 76% of the students are more likely to enroll in a degree program that offers industry micro-credentials. So industry and also professional certificates are actually some of the things that in higher education need to consider in their program, looking at these statistics. So just by looking at all these statistics, for example, 88% of employers believe that professional certificates strengthen candidates' job application, and 90% of students agree that the professional certificate will help them to secure a job. So somehow higher education need to shift or rewire how they think about offering their degree, how you can actually improve the enrollment of each of the program, looking at the situation. So that is also what is happening in the US. I guess it's not different than in Malaysia, but maybe in the US, the labor market is very much progressing very fast. All right, in terms of definitions, in this talk, we are referring to credentials mainly on alternative credentials. Maybe in Malaysia, in the US, sometimes they use non-degree credentials. Means other than degree, other than your master's, is called, other types of credentials, we call it non-degree credentials, okay? Any degree that is not a degree. Any credentials that is not in a degree. In Malaysia, maybe a lot of terms that we use is alternative credentials, means credentials outside the traditional formal qualification structures. So there is a overlapping, and quite commonly people use micro credentials interchangeably, because that's a famous term or a popular term now. It can also fall under, because micro-credential can also fall as part of the degree. And then we also have stackable credentials. This is also one thing we need to make sure that you provide smaller credentials designed to build into a larger pathway. And a lot of times, we want to make sure our programs are really towards industry facing or towards marketable, towards the labor market. So it has to be related to industry credentials. So normally industry credentials refer to the credentials valued by employers, professional bodies, or regulators. So this is one of the scenarios. Maybe it's the same all over the world, how we understand what it means by stackable credential pathways. When you have sets of competencies for a program, you need to make sure you know how to design your curriculum in terms of courses and pathways, in terms of badges. You have a combination of badges and certificates towards a degree. So this is how we can see the trend, the overall trend as well. Okay, so with that scenario and that definition, let me go straight to the 7 trends. Okay, trend number 1 is basically degrees are being unbundled into smaller verified units. I'm sure in Malaysia also we have this, right? We understand about micro-credentials and how we unbundle, or we also have standalone micro-credentials. So it's quite similar. In the US, they also have these trends, and it's being basically it's increasing, yeah, the credentialing stages of learning along the way. And not just that, you can see it clearly. You know, the logic is that learners, employers want shorter, more targeted, and more quickly visible evidence of skills. So for each of the trend, I also include some of the examples. You know, for example, in SUNY State University of New York, they actually define what it means by how do you actually unbundle the program and have a short micro credentials or credentials that help them so that it will have a clear pathways to these students. So it's been a trend now. Most universities have their own micro credentials terms and definition. So bear in mind, in the United States, it's quite unique. It's not the same as in Malaysia. We have a agency like MQA who are actually monitoring the quality. But in the US, they are more flexible. Some of the things they are referring to certain policy at the state level. So they don't have a national level quality assurance. They have a state level and also maybe some associations that actually guide them through with some of the policy. So looking at this, having a smaller unit. So these are some of the other examples. So the first example is from Harper College. This is also part, I think I got this also from the MQA recent guidelines on ICA. It shows how manufacturing production certificates is basically stackable. When you actually design a micro credentials, or you can also see it's not just in terms of micro credentials, but also small unit of learnings. MIT has what they call micromasters. So micromasters is part of the larger masters, but they do it online. After they finish the micromasters online, it can be taken from all over the world. And then after that, they can go into their master's pathways. So these are some of the examples. And number 2 is basically on the employer branded credentials. This is very, very clear in terms of signs that employees are influencing the universities to recognize this kind of credentials. So universities are no longer working only with academic certificates, but they are integrating these credentials in their programs. You know, for example, Google, IBM, Microsoft, Salesforce, and other employers. So this shift reflects a broader concern with career readiness. For example, especially in the field of IT, cybersecurity, business, health, and data. Some of the example here in the United States is University of Texas. So through their Texas Credentials for Future, this University of Texas, they have about more than 35 entry-level professional certificates through Coursera. So they use a lot of platforms such as Coursera, Udemy, edX, and so on. And they also work with companies like Google, IBM, and so on. So these are all the examples. Many other universities actually work on this. In other words, they need to make sure their curriculum are really like integrate with the credentials from the industry. Because sometimes for us in Malaysia, we have this, but not directly, incorporated into our program. Maybe there are some universities already started. Maybe you can also comment in the chat box, or after this, we can have this discussion. But I can really see that in the United States, maybe this trend is really, really rising in a lot of universities. So these are some of the examples, some of other universities that are doing it, not just in the United States, it's also internationally. By having a platform like Coursera, for example, there are cases how they incorporate these certificates. For example, Google Project Management, Google Data Analytics, Meta, social media marketing. So a lot of IT and businesses basically. And you can also see they are not just for credit, but they're also for non-credit. Yeah, both non-credit and credit. Because we need to make sure the challenges is when you actually take this industry certificates, you need to make sure it aligns with the outcomes that we need to achieve. Yeah, some of our programs, maybe it doesn't match. So in that case, maybe you're going to take it as non-credit. So that's what happens as well in all other universities. Yeah? So some of it considered as like career electives, or if it's non-credit, it can be part of their experience, but maybe like graduation requirement. For example, the Hawaii Pacific University is part of the graduation requirement. So there are many types of how you can integrate this, but it's quite popular, and it's something that really a trend for platform like Coursera. So they have what they call Coursera for Campus, and they can advise what kind of industry certificates that all these universities can take from. Okay, trend number 3 is basically credit and non-credit systems are converging. When we talk about micro-credentials, a lot of time, especially I think most universities in Malaysia, we are actually unbundle our program. That's easy, right? We already have our program and we unbundle it, we make it like a micro-credential. That'd be a lot easier. But because of these industry trends, there is a need that we need to blend into our program. I think I did mention this just now. When you have something from industries, you want to incorporate in your curriculum, but it doesn't really match your credit system. So there is a need, maybe you need to look at how do you blend the credit and the non-credit system so that they converge. There are also trends that they are looking into like co-curricular or continuing education, employee training, or formal credit pathways. And only part of it is considered as credit. That's what it means by they're trying to converge these two. And as long as all these credentials are actually have a clear pathways, show the learners where are they going, lead somewhere, and it should be something that is good to implement. And the main thing is the value of the credential. It's not only in immediate employability, but also its progression function. So some of the examples, maybe we have the mini MBA. It actually started from, for example, here we do have like executive programs, which are not really master's program. It's part of the upskilling those who are working. So basically, they can take this kind of mini kind of MBA, and eventually you take that as part of the credit towards your MBA. Quite similarly to the MicroMasters just now for MIT, they have this program, and these pathways, not necessarily they take that MicroMasters, they can convert all into credits. Okay, if you go to MIT MicroMasters, there are a lot of universities partnering with MIT, and they are looking into a partial credit transfer. So that's how people are doing it. It's not necessarily that, if you cannot have a credit transfer, then maybe you just ignore that micro credentials, you don't take it. Sometimes because of the value of the outcomes of that micro credentials, you can consider that in your curriculum as well. And this can be an attraction. Other examples in some universities as well, I've seen that they built into like the curriculum. For example, they have high school credits. Some of the high school students, they study in the university. They take some co-curricular activities, maybe preparation to go to the degree or introduction, engineering 101 or things like that. And part of that will be converted into credits. And some university, they don't convert into credits. They will say this will be like access to the program. You will get discount. There's so many ways that they can convert it into not just into credits but also non-credits. So there are various ways, as long as the universities can show the learners, what would be the pathway or the progressions towards after they've taken that micro credentials or that learning sessions. And number 4 is digital credentialing is becoming part of the trust infrastructure. This is very, very important when now people want to see some proof of, if you have taken a certain learning experience, or if you have taken certain micro-credentials, they want to have digital badges where they can share it in LinkedIn or any other social medias. So that is why digital credential is very, very important. I believe in Malaysia, we also have, and a lot of new universities are also moving towards that direction. But I think in the US, there are more creative, I guess, in terms of different kinds of badges. They don't just give badges to micro-credentials, they also give badges to experiences. And they are not necessarily online. The learning can take place in terms of workshops or, physical face-to-face or in-person learning. So these are the trend as well, having digital badges, digital certificates, and learner records. So, for example, we have in Rutgers, they have these resume level skills. So when they come to these certain skills, workshops, and so on, they also get digital badges. So digital badges is not necessarily specifically for credit transfers. It can be part of it, but it's not necessary. It's just digital certificates. The main thing is they can share these badge, and it can create some trust where they go to the labor market. So this is also the trend is they need to show when they have digital badges, for example, in Rutgers or in UMBC, it's University of Maryland, Baltimore County. They have a clear pathways, how they design the badges, whether at what Bloom's level of taxonomy, and how do they actually stack it, and what are the pathways, where are they leading to. So when you have this clear ecosystem, it will actually help, especially related to the industrial competencies. Okay, this is an example for Rutgers. They have different type of badges. And interestingly, it's not just for academics or students. They also have badges for staff. When the staff take their certain courses and so on, they also have badges for this. And maybe the staff want to continue some towards degree. So they will show what is the pathway. Maybe it's not converted into degree or any pathway. So they will also show these badges. Maybe they have part 1, part 2, part 3, and so on. So that you need to make sure you are very clear, what kind of badges that you want to issue and what is the policy. They have these 4 types: standalone, academic, professional, and student life badges. Remember, maybe as a higher education, we are not just looking into just as students after SPM, but we are also looking at learners at different stages, even the continuing education learners, because we have to make sure, the way it works now in terms of labor market, we need to create this more access, towards our degree program or towards our master's program. It's not just we taking students at certain age, but now we are open because now the learners are towards 100 years of life now. People are getting have a longer lifespan. That means as a higher education, you need to provide this. So that's why it also affects, the upskilling and also the people from the industry and professional development. So for University of Maryland, Baltimore County, also they have different kind of badges. Maybe I don't need to show that. We go to the trend number 5. Career relevance is being embedded earlier in the student journey. This is quite interesting in terms of how they expose the students starting in the beginning of the first years. Of course, maybe some of the universities in Malaysia do this at the same time. But this is what or how the industry affect the universities. Universities need to make sure that they are moving the employability upstream, starting for the first years, and they have these badges and exploration certificates. So each of these universities, they create their own passport or their own series of seminars starting from first year. So the learners can really see the journey, starting from first year. For example, in Ruggles, they have this E3SL passport program. Providence College, they have this Friar Leadership and Immersion program. So there are many of these career or employability experience starting from the first year. Maybe in Malaysia we do this as well, but in terms of how much do we actually plan in the curriculum itself, how do we actually embed in our curriculum itself, and also with the digital badges.
Prof, ada
Yeah.
soalan di chat tu.
Okay, sebab tak nampak. Okay, what is it?
The digital badges more likely similar like usual certificates as we attended any seminar or workshop, right? It's a question lah.
Yeah, it can. As digital badges means you have the badge. So they have certificates. They also have digital badges, because when you want, for example, in LinkedIn, you can share your digital badges, but you don't share your certificates, right? So normally, when you have your digital badges, you also have certificates. I hope that answered the questions. It can also be from micro-credentials. It can also be any kind of, it's just to show that you have undergone a certain learning process. It can be from workshops, it can be face-to-face, it can be, you have gone through something, but that's why that badge has to get some verifications, from that particular university and explaining what is it all about.
Prof, let's say that a student or a lecturer has collected maybe like 10 badges from attending 10 workshops, right? Ataupun 10
Uh-huh.
trainings, right?
Yeah.
So, what is the current platform for them to showcase their badges? Well, from what I can see, maybe it's just LinkedIn right now, kan? So, how
Yeah,
do
I
they do
think
it in the
LinkedIn.
US?
Uh, Mainly is, I think for us, for social media is LinkedIn, but other types is all the platforms like Coursera, Udemy, all the digital platforms. They should be able to share that. And another thing, why they are so obsessed with digital badges, I think because they are coming up with, I will explain in the next trend, is basically the comprehensive learning records. That one I will explain after this. So that's why they want this university to start with digital badges and micro credentials, and so all these things can be shared through a records and cross universities. Yeah. So that would be trend number 7. Why they need that digital? So if I want to answer, okay, where else can you share? Once they have this, because it's still ongoing. The effort is still ongoing. I think all over the world, people are talking about this. I'm not sure in Malaysia whether we already have this. I know, like we last time we have, for example, apa CGPA apa dipanggil tu? Lupa dah. Where you measure the skills, right? Comprehensive CGPA tu. It's not just transcript. But in the US, they go for digital. So when you have digital, it's easy for you to share the records. So the idea is, it's kind of like your lifetime passport. You have your, other than history of degree, certification, license, competency courses, open badges, because you want to record all the experiences that you have. And in the university, they call it comprehensive learners record. But as a whole, at the national level, there are movements, they're going through having the comprehensive learner and employment records. Means your job as well. Because maybe the university, they just have their own records, right? But at the national level, they are moving towards a comprehensive learner and employment records under the labor department. So this is the thing that is quite current, I would guess. I guess all over the world, because we had benchmarking session or a closed session last time from people all over the world talking about this, and they are like trying to have like in a way, this is like a passport of your lifetime passport. People are talking about living 100 years, and nowadays people still want to upskill, and also they want to learn online, although you are senior people, normally that's the trend. So you need to be able to have this kind of records, so that you can go in and out, whether you're working or you're learning in the universities, So it's easy for transfer credits, or even, for appel, accreditation for prior learning. So it's the same. In the United States, they also have this accreditation of prior learning. So that's what they think, by having all this digital method. And they were talking about standards to have this. Means all universities need to have certain specific formats to have this, so that it supports stackable, portable, and digitally verifiable pathway. So I also put here, how they look at the standards, how do they go about, what kind of field that you need to have, so that it can be carried throughout the world, because they have these global standards to do that. Does that answer the question, Dr. Rashdan?
Yeah, betul bah. Okay, thank you.
Okay. So basically, those are the 7 trends, which I found that in Malaysia we have a lot of it, but maybe the comprehensive learner and employment records, we are still not there yet, and we are quite separated between the human resource and higher education. But I'm sure the dialogue is going on as well. This is an example of the CLR. So CLR is just in the university. So if it's employment record, then it connects to the labor department. So this is an example. The first one is an example in the University of Maryland, Baltimore. So you can see these are the courses. So they try to connect how they align of all of these course outcomes and competencies, and they will try to look at even the lifelong learning part, which is on the exposure on the skills or experience. So they will try to put in the comprehensive learners record. The bottom here is from University of Georgia. So you can see these are the courses and also activities. So they include all of the activities as well, not just the courses. So this is an example for Indiana University. So how it looks like, it's like a comprehensive resume, something like that, yeah. But we are recording all their experiences. So for example, they have this like first year experience, with what kind of outcomes did they get, and what kind of activities. It's like a combination of academic and also co-curriculum, but they will outline what would be the learning outcomes that they will get. All right. So based on my study, basically I looked into about 43 case studies and micro-credentials, QA documents, and basically these are the models of integration. Because when we talk about how you rewiring higher education, we need to make sure that higher education does exist and sustain, but taking into what's going on in the industry. So we are looking at these 5 models, maybe. How do we actually integrate all these credentials into the curriculum? The first model is the embedded credential. This is already inside the curriculum. Model B is the prior learning assessment. Model C is articulated pathway, means through agreement, you make an agreement with an industry. And model D is the stackable sequence, maybe the learners will take many micro-credentials, and universities need to highlight how do you stack the pathways clearly. So any universities can have different kind of models. It's not mutually exclusive. Like one university can have different kind of models. But model E, from the observation here, model E is mostly in the community college, because the way they understand work-based learning is different. They are working at their place work. Their apprenticeship and work-based learning is basically they are working. They already have a job, and they're taking some courses or micro credentials, and it will convert into the associate degree, and then from there they have a pathways that they can go to degree, transfer to a degree. So model E is mainly like a workplace training integrated to a degree program. So this is mainly a lot of community college here have this kind of model. So this is how what kind of possible pathways that how higher education can integrate these industry credentials and professional credentials into their program. And trying to finish by 10:45. So basically, in the US, I would say because they do not have a very strong national level of framework, they are free, they are more autonomy in the US. So they are highly decentralized and innovation heavy, strong employer participation, because maybe like Google or Coca-Cola or whatever is just next door. And these employers really need students. And also the rapid growth of badges, certificates, and digital records. Also, recognition is often institution specific. As I said, they have this autonomy. So that's why maybe it's progressing a little bit more faster than what we can see in Malaysia. However, of course, Malaysia has the other side of the coin is Malaysia has its own strength in terms of centralized quality assurance at the national level. So we can learn this innovation from the US. And these are my general recommendations. How do we actually move from isolated micro-credentials to stackable pathways? We are not just talking about unbundling, so maybe micro-credentials that stand alone, and we need to move towards stackable. Standardized recognition and credit transfer across institutions. We already have the mechanisms, but maybe things can be clearly organized, among some of the coalitions or associations among the higher educations. Embed career relevance early in the degree programs, build trusted digital credential and learner record infrastructure, and strengthen governance and outcome tracking, not just the number of offerings. So Malaysia should scale alternative credentials through clear pathways, consistent recognition, early career integration, trusted digital records, and strong quality assurance. Okay, sorry. So this is the overview recommendations for institutions. First, of course, at any institutions who would want to actually pursue this or strengthen your offerings, so make sure there is a governance and QA established in your universities, looking at the quality assurance process for badges and MCs. Recognition framework, okay, you need to define, which credentials are badge only or MCs or credit bearing or credit recommended. Looking at specific digital platform, make sure it's a secure issuance. Normally, a lot of universities maybe take certain digital platform verification, learner wallet, and transcript linkage, and also make sure we have a good industry design. This can also be quite challenging to co-design it together with the industry. Okay, so my conclusion is industry is not taking over, but the trend is there. How they actually offer a lot of credentials, but it is actually forcing us to become more modular, more flexible, more transparent, and employment facing. So I want to listen. What are your views? So yes, that's all, Dr. Rashdan. Sorry for taking the time.
Thank you, Prof. Wow, actually, right on the dot, Prof. 45 minutes. Thank you so much. It was
Yeah.
very interesting. I have a lot of question juga nak tanya, tapi I think I want to open to the participants. If you have any question, you can turn on your mic ataupun you can write on the chat box untuk tanya Prof. Ada tak siapa nak tanya?
Oh, Nazira. Nazira is in the States now. Dr.
I have
Nazira.
question.
Yes,
Yeah,
silakan.
Assalamualaikum. Yeah,
Salam.
I'm Nazira. Currently in United States as a faculty member lah kat sini. So I have kind of curiosity in comparison between public universities and private universities. I do see here in the US, there's not much difference in terms of the freedom to do different kinds of program. You want to test different ways of doing different programs, right? How about in Malaysia? So because I don't have experience in the Malaysia education administration, so I'm curious on that. Thank you.
I guess it's still the same as well. I mean, the main difference, I guess, in the US and Malaysia is US has a lot of autonomy. They can do whatever they want. Of course, they are just binded by like state level policy, but the policy is not very, I would say, it's not like Malaysia. Malaysia is being governed by like MQA and accreditation, and so they have accreditation, right, in the US. But in
Right.
terms of private and public, I don't think there's much different, except maybe the size of the universities in Malaysia.
Okay.
Of course, if you're like smaller university, maybe your capacity is less than public, which has more funding, and also maybe a larger university. So I guess that's just in terms of the capability and the manpower. Uh, Not so much the difference between public and private.
Okay, that's good to hear.
Yeah,
I'm just wondering, like, how, because a lot of in Malaysia, they like you said, they're more to apa govern. Some of the things is governed by the nationally, right?
yes.
So yeah, that's what I'm curious. Thank you.
I would think most university macam they're like very concerned or cautious. When they want to do something new, they have to check first with MQA. So maybe that will also have like a limit. Of course, MQA say, "Oh, you're open to do it," but they are afraid. When the accreditation comes, something wrong. Yeah, so that's the worry. Yeah.
Okay, while waiting for another question from the audience, my question is, Prof, you've listed ada 7 trends tadi kan? In Malaysia, are we currently ready to adopt and implement the 7 trends tu based on the current MQA punya guideline? Adakah dah established ataupun some of them are already ready, dah boleh run, some of them are still in the guideline preparation, some of them are too far-fetched lagi. What are your thoughts on this, Prof?
Yeah, I actually in the slides I checked some of the related MQA punya policy, and quite recently we also have. I hope you can see my. Yeah, okay. Quite recently we also have this alternative credentials playbook for adaptive industry, which is because when I did my presentation previously, I didn't realize that MQA already launched this one. So it is a good initiative in Malaysia. We already have this. It's kind of like example how you can actually include your industry credentials in your curriculum. So maybe if you're interested for your university, you can look at this. So you can see we already have kind of like framework, guidelines to good practice. It's just we are there in terms of document, but maybe the speed is a bit slower, I would say, because I understand like the challenges even maybe in my university. If there is no need, people don't do anything. Yeah, that's my thought. It's quite challenging actually to get the buy-in from the current maybe the academics to actually change the curriculum or things like that. So it has to be from the leadership, understanding the importance and drive through this thing. So I would say most of the 7 trends we do have it, but a bit slow. But the last one, the comprehensive records, I don't think we have it. We have this Dr. Rashdan, I can't remember apa nama dia dulu yang GPA yang komprehensif tu. Apa kita panggil?
ICGPA ke? Yang Spiderweb tu?
Yeah.
Integrated CGPA kan?
Yes, but I think some university already dropped that.
It was the
National,
policy under the previous KPT minister kan, tapi and then dia dah tak
yeah,
implemented dah now. But I heard that some universities are restarting the
still,
ICGPA implementation.
yeah. But the difference is, as I said, this comprehensive learner records is more digital and, everything. It's more comprehensive than ICGPA. Yeah.
Okay.
Because ICGPA tu, mainly dia macam ni lah. Macam even in Uni 10, we do have like 2 transcripts for curriculum and co-curriculum. Yeah. So this one, they want to combine everything and have all your digital badges there. And easy to transfer means they are designing a standards for all universities to have certain field. They are standardizing it so that you can transfer easily.
Okay, there's a comment from Dr. Shahril, Unimap. For your information, dream catcher in Malaysia has introduced digital badges.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Shari. Yeah.
Well, actually, I'm we would like to organize talk, seminars, workshop, training for students since they're in first year kan to prepare them for their career. But I think in my university or I think in other universities juga kadang-kadang pensyarah tu lah yang terlebih concern, terlebih aktif nak buat tapi student tak nak datang kan. Kan kita buat
Yeah.
macam-macam, tengok-tengok crowd yang datang, kita panggil orang besar, adalah 10, 20 kerat je kan yang datang kan. They
Yeah.
don't see the need to come and they need to untuk gelabah lebih awal lah, especially first year is the honeymoon year. So what I can my takeaway from your talk is actually kalau kita introduce digital badges actually di peringkat university, we make it a system. Jadi we motivate them to collect the digital badges. Let's say that by their final year, dia dah ada maybe like 10, 20 badges yang dia dah ada. Rather than now, I think it's just a certificate dan dia tak nampak and dia tak boleh showcase and share in any platform kan. So I think this is a good idea that I would like to implement lah dekat my university lah. Thank you, bro.
Oh, good. Good. All the best to you.
Sebab
Yeah. Very
budak-budak
good.
sekarang ni dia tak nampak
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
motivasi.
I think that's a trend of the learners as well. Yeah. They
Hmm.
like to share something, right? In their
Hmm.
medsoc and yeah.
Okay, then
Okay.
Dr. Nazira also shared in the comment I've experienced with some university in Malaysia too. They said they want to do this and that to help provide more better workforce in electronic factory, but they ended up being quiet after talking to us. Maybe higher ups are not interested or have other priorities. So industries in Malaysia itulah cabaran dia. Everything is about dollars and cents. Jadi kalau kata dia kena keluarkan extra cost, they will be quite reluctant lah. Not all industry, but some of them are like that.
Yes, of course.
Mhm.
One of the big challenge lah, talking to industry. You're talking about different different kind of outcomes and competencies as well.
From your slide just now, Prof, trend number 2 kan, yang employer branded credentials tu,
Yeah.
dalam bawah tu kan, University of Texas System ada like 35 entry level professional certificates through Coursera from companies such as Google, IBM, Microsoft, and no extra cost. So
Yeah.
that
They
is
have grants.
I wanted to ask that macam dekat Malaysia ni, not only that the companies are the industry maybe are quite reluctant untuk spend untuk invest lah in this kind of training, but also when we talk to universities, it's all about profit,
Cost.
uh, income generation apa semua tu lah kan.
Yeah.
Jadi that's one of the KPI of the current university juga. Jadi how do we maneuver around this, Prof? Sebab industri susah nak keluar duit, university pula nak generate income.
Yes, this is one of the challenges, of course. I've talked to some universities. I put that as a trend, but not necessarily or like 100% universities doing this, because the challenge is money, because all these Google certificates and so is expensive. It's not free. So what they do to accelerate this, the state, for example, University of Texas, they covered by the state. The state need to give grants because the state has a KPI to provide more learners, more seats for upscaling, reskilling, and so on. So they work with universities saying that, oh, if you take this Google, whatever, you can also go to university and get your degree or something like that, both sides lah, not just for the university, the current university students, but they also can say, after you get this, you can go to this university for certain credits and so on. So it's kind of like initiative. So you can see that the role of the industries, the policymakers, the leaders in the university as well, is quite challenging. Yeah. Not that all is a trend and it's a smooth thing. It's also a struggle for some of them.
Okay, Prof Riza share industri boleh claim HRDC, cuma kena tailor training kepada keperluan industri. Maybe training provided by university more theory, maybe can be more applied. So we need to tailor the training to be more applied based lah. Okay.
Yeah, it's good. Thank you, Prof. Riza. Memang kalau Malaysia kita ada HRDC kan untuk industri. So this is also, I also give this talk to my university. I said now, as a university, you don't think about, because we want to increase our enrollment. I don't know about other universities, but a lot of universities actually, they see the, students after SPM, they don't want to continue to degree, right? So there is a decline in enrollment, same as in the US. They said there is a decline because they said to go to university is expensive. They go to industry, alternative credentials, dia buat courses-courses ni, dia terus dapat kerja kan. So this is what we want to also attract people who are already in the industry. They can go to this claim HRDC and so on and tell them, okay, with your certificates now, you can enter my university. So you can have enrollment from at the professional level. So that is the idea that we want to make sure, how do you see these trends basically.
Okay, I think we have one more question. Asyik saya je yang tanya. I think saya nak buka the final question to the participants, audience. Ada nak tanya apa-apa tak from Prof Hanim before we end our session in 2-3 minutes?
Oh, tadi Dr. Das saya tanya, baru perasan Dr. Das Mawati tanya digital badge tu kan, dah jawab kan?
Dah jawab dah.
Malaysia mungkin ada, I don't know, my university belum fully lah. We are trying, but not fully. Ada tak universiti yang dah fully, boleh share lah.
Ni soalan daripada Prof Hatif. Dia luar topik sikit, tapi I think it's a good platform lah to share. Boleh
Yes.
cerita sikit pasal Fulbright, macam mana nak apply and what?
Ya, Fulbright ni ada macam-macam jenis. Yang I'm doing is Malaysia Fulbright. Mungkin kalau kenal macam Prof Nordin, dia dapat ASEAN Fulbright. Malaysia Fulbright 6 bulan. ASEAN Fulbright, tapi impact dia kena dekat ASEAN 4 bulan. Lagi satu Humphrey. Tapi dia mungkin untuk mid-career, dia 8 bulan. So those are different types and insyaAllah akan buka soon. Sekarang tengah buka yang postgrad sebab dia ada macam-macam kan, Fulbright. Siapa dia buat PhD pun ada juga. And then yang I minta ni biasa you apply 1 year before. So for this year you're gonna go next year lah, this tahun. So normally dia buka I think around August or something like that, tapi tutup October something like that. The main thing is you need to get the host. The host tu sangat penting. So in my experience, I'm actually engineering. So have problem getting my engineering partner there because they normally want us to pay lah to go to their labs unless you are okay, they are okay to provide you. So they ask for grants. So I have problem with that. So one of the participants before they said because the focus is cultural exchange and understanding. So most of us do like public policy or things like that related to our field. Itu lagi satu cara lah kalau tak boleh buat masuk jenis engineering and so on.
Okay, one final question from Prof Rizal. Ini memang saya nak tanya juga tadi. Ada ke badan yang regulate badges ni atau perlu ke tidak regulatory body? Prof punya experience US macam mana? Kalau tak, yelah masing-masing universiti keluar badge masing-masing kan? Jadi tak
Kalau kat Malaysia memang kita jaga jugalah. I think I tak baca lagi details on policy dekat MQA, how do they regulate this. Tapi US memang dia by university. As long as you ada explanation lah, what are your badges for, what are the competency, what are the pathways. Dia kena ada framework lah for your badges. Dekat Malaysia, I'm sorry, I tak sempat tanya. Tapi sebab selama ini dia dikaitkan dengan platforms lah. Dekat US, dekat Malaysia, I nampak dikait dengan platform. Contohnya, kalau macam I boleh dapat badges because I took some courses online. I boleh dapat badges. So badges tu dikeluarkan oleh that particular platform lah. Macam soft skills or I think all these digital platform, Coursera ke, or this platform yang keluarkan badges, itu tak ada, bukanlah tak ada regulation, dia dah terkenal lah kan. Of course dia ada dia punya macam official blockchain or whatever, kena ada lah.
Okay, thank you so much, Prof, for your time today and also for your excellent presentation. Banyak yang I personally learned lah from today's session. I would like also to thank Ikram Academia as our member for hosting this session today. Sebenarnya banyak lagi tajuk-tajuk dalam Perintis Public Forum yang kita nak ketengahkan, and we also welcome any suggestion for topics daripada members dan juga non-members. Kalau ada, you are very interested in one particular topic but you are not sure how to host, then we can help you and assist you to host the session. Okay. Itu saja. Thank you so much, Prof. Boleh berehatlah, Prof. Dah pukul 11 malam dah dekat US.
Okay, thank you so much everyone.
When are you flying back to Malaysia, Prof?
InsyaAllah soon, 11.
Tak lama lagi ya.
Lagi.
Okay.
Dah nak
Alright.
habis.
Okay, thank you so much, Prof. Alright, and thank you
Thank
everyone.
you.
Have a nice
Okay.
day and kita akan jumpa lagi pada sesi-sesi akan datang. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.